Codemagic is a fully hosted and managed CI/CD for mobile applications. With Codemagic, you can build, test, deploy your Flutter, native Android or iOS, React Native, Ionic, and Unity apps. The projects are configured using a file called codemagic.yaml. Alternatively, you can set up your Flutter projects in Codemagic's Flutter workflow editor. In this series, we're going to use the flexible codemagic.yaml file. Codemagic.yaml is a highly customizable configuration file for setting up your CI/CD pipeline with Codemagic. In order to use it, it has to be committed to your repository, and it should be placed at the root of each branch you want to build. It should be called exactly codemagic.yaml. If you need to validate the codemagic.yaml file locally, then you need to configure your IDE to use the Codemagic JSON schema. It's available on our docs. Let's go to our project and create a new file. You can use codemagic.yaml to define several workflows for building a project. Each workflow describes the entire build pipeline. For example, you may want to have one workflow for building your Android app and another one for building your iOS app. Let's start by creating our first Hello World workflow. This workflow will only print a hello magic word. Instance type specifies the build machine type to use for the build. The supported build machines are Mac Mini, Mac Pro, Mac Mini M1, Linux, and Windows. Set your maximum build duration using the max build duration property. It can be from 1 minute to 120 minutes. Import environment variable groups defined in the team settings and application settings using the environment property. Every group can have multiple variables. You can define workflow-specific public environment variables as well. You can specify the versions of some of the pre-installed softwares used in the build, like Flutter, Xcode, and others. You can use cache to define the paths you want to be cached and stored on Codemagic. For example, you may consider caching the following paths. This will speed up your next builds. The build can be started manually or automatically using build triggers. The trigger events are push event, pull request events, and tag creation events. Then define the branch patterns which match the name of a particular branch. Or you can use wildcard samples to create a pattern that matches several branches. So, if I want to include all of the branches, I can use this wildcard. In this scenario, the trigger will apply on all branches except for the developer branch. Note that for pull request builds, you have to specify whether the watched branch is the source or the target of the pull request. And now let's head to the most important part of the file, the scripts section. In here, you can specify the commands to test, build, and codesign your project. For example, if you're building a Flutter app, you need these commands. First, get the Flutter packages. Then, for example, build the Android application in release mode. Then you can build the iOS. You can also run shell scripts directly in your YAML file or by launching a script file presented in your repository. In this script, I'm creating a new file with this content using the shell commands. In the artifact section, you can configure the paths of the artifact you'd like to use in the following steps for publishing or have available for download on the build page. Codemagic has a number of integrations for publishing: App Store Connect, TestFlight, Google Play, Slack, or notifications by email. These recipients will receive emails after the build is over, in both successful and failure cases. We'll talk about publishing to the stores in details in upcoming videos. After we have finished our file, we can save it and commit it to our source control, so Codemagic can read this configuration. If we open out our Codemagic app, and click on the refresh icon, we can see our configurations. If the file doesn't have any issues, we can start a new build. Select your branch and workflow, then start. When the build starts, we can see all the different stages of our workflow and its logs. When the build is successfully finished, we can download the generated artifacts. That's all about codemagic.yaml. Not that hard, right? Learn more about codemagic.yaml at our documentation.